All right, so another round begins, and first I want to thank all the new subscribers. Great comments that everybody left, tons of comments. It was great to see people contributing a lot of cool information, some inspiring, very encouraging comments, and some pretty funny stuff too. So thank you to all the new subscribers and people commenting on the videos. Very much appreciative of all that you've contributed, and glad to see it's like hitting some people in a hard spot and making people feel good, and hopefully dispelling some of the illusions of what people think about the Torah, and as well as all the crazy different topics that I've thrown up. So first one we're going to start with is misconception of capital punishment, the death penalty. It's something that there's a lot of things in the Torah that contribute or could be considered death worthy. Worshipping other gods other than the one God of Israel, sacrificing children to Molech, necromancy, sorcery, homosexuality is one of them. Types of prostitution, especially like to other gods, which was a common thing I think back then. Also hitting your parents, cursing your parents, murder, obviously. These were all death-worthy trespasses. But it was very hard to enact the death penalty in the Torah for a number of reasons. So for anyone to have actually committed a death-worthy trespass and be prosecuted for it, one, you would have to have the temple and the Sanhedrin. So the death penalty is not even something that can be enacted right now in the last couple thousand years since the Second Temple era. So first of all, it can't happen. But even when it was there, it was very hard to enact. So I'm just going to use homosexuality as the example because it was such a trigger point, and we will do a clarification video about all that, as I think a lot of people misunderstood what I was trying to talk about. But to enact the death penalty on anybody, you would have to have two witnesses that come across the person committing. So in the case of homosexuality, they have to see two men committing homosexual penetration, and these two witnesses can't have known each other ahead of time. They would have to both stop and tell the people doing this that what you're doing is worthy of the death penalty. And those two people committing the homosexual act, let's say, or whatever it is, would have to go and admit that they acknowledge it and they don't care. They'd have to basically say, okay, yeah, whatever, we don't care, screw you. And then the people can go and get other people or whatever, and they're liable to the death penalty. So two witnesses having to warn, that never knew each other ahead of time, having to warn the people that are doing this act, having those people doing the act acknowledge it and dismiss it completely, and then and only then can death penalty be incurred. So even with the story of Jesus, for the Christians out there, they tried to get him on blasphemy, basically, blaspheming against God. And as I remember the story, it's been 25 years since I've read most of Christian scripture, but they couldn't get two witnesses to basically say that and meet all these criteria to have a death penalty. They had the Sanhedrin in the temple, so it was possible, but they couldn't. And it was the Romans who eventually killed Jesus, right? Not the Jewish people. So, and on different charges. So, one, we'll do a video about all that BS, blood libel, craziness, but it's that difficult. It's really a hard thing to enact. Not many people throughout history have ever had the death penalty in Judaism because of all these criteria. And even in the story of Jesus, it shows how difficult it was. They couldn't get two witnesses to have a matching story that warned him and all the other parts of it. So that's what they mean when they say the witnesses, they couldn't get two witnesses. It's that they have to meet all these criteria. So And it's interesting that, and we'll talk about it more in the story on clarifying homosexuality and what I really meant, because I think a lot of people misunderstood what I was trying to say. That even today, there's so many people so against it, when adultery is also a death-worthy offense. Both the man and the woman are put to death for committing adultery. And it's a little different. In the Torah itself, a man who's married can have sex with another woman who's not married. There's rabbinic laws against it now, but just by the Torah itself, a woman who's married can't have sex with another man other than her husband, but a man who's married could have sex with a single woman, let's say. But if that should happen, that a woman should have sex with a man who's not her husband, a married woman, then both are liable to the death penalty. And I find that much more destructive in terms of married women and married people in general cheating and committing adultery, in that there's normally families involved. So when you're committing that act, it seems more like a death-worthy thing, in that you're destroying families a lot of times too. It's not just homosexual people committing whatever they're doing, but actually an act that destroys the entire family. So I think it's a much more grievous sin in a lot of respects, and something we've totally normalized in society. People think it's totally okay to do, or justify it one way or another. They weren't happy, or this or that. There's always an excuse. And it's why don't Christians and Muslims, especially, were throwing homosexuals off roofs, think adultery is far worse of a sin. I personally do. And I teach their own. I don't. Death penalty is harsh in anything, but destruction of the family is such a tragic thing. And so I think there's a very interesting anger and focus in Christianity and Islam over homosexuality. And in Christianity, it comes up many more times. We'll talk about it in the clarification video. Than Judaism, where it only appears twice in the Torah, Vayikra 18 and 20. But there's such a huge list of death-worthy trespasses. It's interesting how people pick and choose what it is that they feel are like the really important ones. And when the Torah itself says it's hard to know which mitzvah, to know it all, that if any mitzvah, good deed, being either one of the 248 positive mitzvot, which are the things to do, or 365 prohibitive mitzvot, negative mitzvot, which are things not to do, is the most important. They say, in fact, we don't know, because we should do all of them like they're important, and we won't know until the end days or whatever which is the most important one, because we should be all of them should matter, and we shouldn't be picking and choosing, this one's more important than this one. But I find it very interesting that there's a huge movement against this one act, as opposed to so many other things in the list that could earn somebody capital punishment, the death penalty. So I hope this clarifies and shows how difficult it really is to enact, and understanding how rarely it's ever been enacted. It's very few times throughout history, and it's can't technically be enacted right now without the temple and the Sanhedrin and the courts, basically, which was a council of rabbis, for anyone who doesn't know what the Sanhedrin was, that acted as the body of the court to decide on these kinds of matters. So that's our first misconception video. Thanks again, all the new subscribers, to all the comments, all the people out there. I hope you enjoy it, and we're going to nail out a bunch of videos tonight, and I wish everyone the blessing of knowing the truth and seeing that all of it matters. That there's no deed that's too small, and no deed really in any way that's great. Every good deed is a great thing. And we can never know how great of a thing it is when we do a good deed. So let's go out and do good deeds for the sake of good deeds, but knowing that even what seemingly is the smallest of them is just as important as what of the big ones, right? Giving a quarter to somebody, $1 to somebody can be as big as giving someone thousands of dollars in the moment. We can never know the reward or the impact we have with our deeds. So I wish everybody that, and going out and doing good deeds for the world and not worrying about which is the greatest or which is the, just do the good deeds. And that's how we move the world forward. And let's do this, people. Save the humans.
Trying to be a better man. Oh yeah. Trying to do the best I can. Oh yeah. And I'm gonna do right thing. Do right thing. No matter what they want to say. And I'm gonna still fight for you. Still fight for you.